Hey guys, it's Sunday, February 5th, 2023, and I want to come on and share with you my understanding of what it means to worship the Father in spirit and in truth. We're told this in John 4:24, and it's very important to him. Obviously, he says there he searches the world looking for those that are worshiping him in spirit and in truth. And I want him to find me. And so I've prayed on this and I've asked the Father to give me an understanding of what this really means. And I'm going to share with you that understanding here. And if you have a different interpretation or he's given you a different understanding, I'm open to that. I'd love to hear about it. And so I'm just going to share with you how I understand it and see if this resonates with you. If it does, I'd love to hear about that too. Now, I hold all my comments for review. So if your comment doesn't get posted right away, then I will review that and post it. I don't like to delete anybody's comments, but there has been some issues with that. So I'll get those posted as soon as possible. But here's my understanding, okay? And some of this has to do with my background. When I was in law school, they teach us that there are two components to the law. There is the letter of the law, and there is the spirit of the law. Now, the letter of the law is the strict application of exactly how it's written. And the spirit of the law is why it was written, the intent behind the law itself. And so, giving that understanding about the spirit of the law and the letter of the law in our own legal system, what I understand about the Father's instruction is that it has those same two components, the moral law and the ceremonial component. So there's the moral component and the ceremonial component, right? The moral component is more of the spirit of the law, why it was written and why they're there. The ceremonial or ritual component of his laws and commandments was the letter of the law. Now, the enemy is masterful at adding things. He's done it all throughout time, and he's doing it today with things that we see, and we've discussed about Paul. There's some additions that have been made by the enemy. Now, I heard this in my spirit earlier last week, and this is what I heard out of the blue. I was cleaning Walter's cage, and I just heard this. The enemy is not allowed to hide the truth, but he is permitted to try and counterfeit it or deflect from it. I heard he is permitted to try and deflect from it. And we know that there's a counterfeit in the churches today. There is a lot of deflection from the truth, and the enemy has been very good at this. And so the Pharisees of Yeshua's time were steadily adding burdens to the letter of the law. People were having to jump through all of these hoops, and it was just too much for them. So the Father sent his Son, Yeshua, to satisfy the letter of the law, the ceremonial portion of the law. The Father doesn't change. We're not in a different dispensation. Blood has always been required. And so, because people were having to bring their animal sacrifices and do all of these hoops and things that the Father was establishing that so that when Yeshua came, it would fulfill that, then that part was fulfilled by Yeshua when he came. But the spirit of the law still remains. And that is the moral law, the portion of the commandments that says, do not have any graven images, do not take my name in vain, do not put anything before him, right? Keep his Sabbath day. That is a sign forever that will never go away. And the other portions of those laws, no murder, no stealing, no committing adultery, honoring our parents, honoring the father and the mother. And we've discussed that too. There's so much more there, but those moral laws are still required. And the letter of the law is what Yeshua came to satisfy. And so we know this because Yeshua is described as the truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And we know that he satisfied the ceremonial or ritual portions of the law because the temple was destroyed right after his ascension, very soon after. That was the nail in the coffin for the ceremonial portion of the law. There's no temple now to even perform the ceremonies. So there might have been a few holdouts after the ascension, but the Father put that nail in the coffin right there. But the moral law still is required, and those are his commandments to us. If you choose to keep some of the dietary laws, that's fine, because he gave those for a reason. There's some unclean foods out there we need to try and avoid if we want to stay healthy. There are other things that, it's not, I don't believe they're required necessarily, but they're not a bad idea. But the ceremonial ritual part was satisfied by Yahushua. He says his blood is the new covenant, in his blood. And we know that the moral laws still are required because Yeshua came and made those laws stricter, right? I mean, it's not enough to hate someone, to murder someone. If you hate them, you've murdered them. If you lust after someone, you don't have to sleep with them to commit adultery. You just lust after them. So these things are still required that we have got to walk in. And that is the spirit of the law. It's for relationship. The Father established those things so that we could walk in a holy and set apart way for him. He didn't give us these commandments to put us under a burden, as Paul teaches and in the New Testament, the epistles teach. This is for relationship, and they're still required. Now, whereas the enemy in the Old Testament came and added to the letter of the law to put the people under a burden, now that Yeshua came and satisfied that, the enemy has turned the tables. And now he says, the spirit of the law is done away with too. Right? All you got to do is believe in Yeshua, and now it's all done. It is finished. But that is not satisfying the spirit and truth that we must walk and worship in that way. Okay, so that's why Paul is deflecting. His teachings deflect from the truth here, the walking and worshiping in spirit and in truth. And so the enemy, where he added the burden before, now he's gone the extreme other direction with this notion of grace by faith and no works. And this is what the churches are teaching. They're not teaching spirit and truth. They're only speaking truth. They're only preaching about Yeshua and the truth, but they're not preaching about the spirit that we have also got to walk in. This is two components to how we must worship the Father. And so I just want to read to you a couple of scriptures to show you, I've got my notes right here, to show you about the spirit of the law and the truth that Yeshua is. Now we've got John 14, 15 through 17. And he says, if you love me, keep my commandments. And then I will pray to the Father, and he will send you the Comforter. He tells us right there how to receive the Holy Spirit, but it begins with obedience to his commandments. We have Revelation 14:12. Keep his commandments and our faith in Yahushua. Spirit and truth. You've got 1 John 2, 3 through 4. We know him if we keep his commandments. If he says he knows him and doesn't keep his commandments, he is a liar, and the truth is not in him. The commandments, the spirit, and the truth. It's both referenced there. Ecclesiastes 12:13 says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Yah, and that is obedience to him. That is the truth, why he sent his son to show us how to walk. That is the truth, fearing Yah and keeping his commandments. That's the spirit. For that is the whole duty of man. The Father does not change. We're not in a different dispensation. And that word dispensation means an exemption from what is usually required. The Father does not change. Okay? Revelation 22:14 says, blessed are those that keep his commandments, for they shall have right to the tree of life and may enter into the gates in the city. And so we've got to understand that there are two components to this walk. And churches are only teaching half of it. And what we know about a half-truth is that it's a whole lie. If you're only getting half the truth, then the churches aren't teaching you how to walk in spirit and in truth. And so this is why the commandments are required, the moral law. This is the spirit of the law. And Yeshua has satisfied the letter of the law on our behalf so that we don't have to slaughter innocent animals. Put your faith and trust in him and keep his commandments. This is the patience of the saints, guys. Now, that's my understanding of spirit and in truth. If you have a different understanding, like I said, please share that with us. And I appreciate your listening. You all have a great evening.